All right, welcome back to another episode of the Stop and Pop. I have Mark Haynes here with me, a reporter for the Sacramento Observer. How you doing, Mark?
Hey man, Jay man, appreciate you having me. I'm doing well. Excited to be here to talk to you, bro.
Thank you. Appreciate you being on.
Yes, sir.
So, first thing I want to talk about with you is the Sacramento Kings. So they finished 46 and 36 last season, missing the playoffs due to a loss from the Pelicans in the play-in tournament. I want you to give your assessment on the season and why it wasn't a successful one as the previous.
Well, to me, I felt like most of the year, like probably about halfway through the year, I felt like the problem was they were the same exact team
Yeah.
that they were the year before. Everybody else got better, and then at the end, obviously, you had the injury to Malik Monk. You lost Kevin Herter earlier throughout the year. But the Malik Monk injury really was like the deciding factor of like this team is not as good as last year. So I think, injuries played a part, but even if they were at full strength, I think they would have made the playoffs. They may have won a couple of more games to get to stay in that top six. But ultimately, I still think everybody else in the league got better, especially the West.
Mhm. Yeah, it was definitely hard to because I was rooting for the Kings that season and how they was going to improve, and just seeing all them injuries happen, I was really like, yeah, that's going to take a real blow for them. Plus, like you said, they didn't really get any key pieces in the offseason.
Right, right,
Mm-hmm.
and with this year, getting DeRozan and that's it's like the Kings, Sacramento. They needed to shake some things up, and that's what I think they lacked last year in totality. Is they basically they had a good year, which last year's team, although they didn't make the playoffs, it still was a good team. It was a solid team. They had a good year. Usually 46 wins, usually gets you in the playoffs, but
Yeah.
it was just that type of year, and I think they needed they needed a little something different to continue to take steps into the right direction.
Hmm. So talk more on that. What do you think DeRozan brings to the table that the Kings didn't have last year?
People always talk, we make a big, hoopla and on like championship DNA. Obviously, DeRozan hasn't won a championship or anything like that, but he's a veteran star in this league. He knows how to play the game. He knows how to, with being in Toronto, with being in San Antonio, playing under Popovich, going to Chicago. He's had to play and adapt to different styles of basketball. And he's been successful, everywhere he's been. And I believe just having that veteran leadership from him is going to be a big plus for the Kings this season. And like back to the first question, I another thing I thought the Kings lacked was having a dog on the team.
Hmm.
Like, De'Aaron Fox, he gets beat up a lot. Sabonis gets beat up. He had black eyes and stuff all through the
Yeah.
season or whatever, whatnot. And there's nobody really that's gonna kind of like, step up and confront somebody, or, there's never any near fights, anything like that. And DeRozan, I think he understands, like, he understands who he is in this league. You see, we all seen the clips of him and Dylan Brooks getting into it, and just
Mhm.
different people. Like DeMar, he's from Compton.
Mhm.
He's not for no games, and that's one of the type of players the Kings needed in order to take another step in the right direction. And I think that's one thing outside of him being a spectacular player, being able to put the ball in the bucket in the fourth quarter and close games or whatever. Now you got him and De'Aaron Fox closing games together. It's gonna be special. But I think just that that it's not tough guy, but just being a real one. Just being a real one. I think the Kings needed that on this team, and I think that's gonna help them moving forward.
That's a good point. I ain't think about that, about the conversation with Dylan Brooks and how like he's not going to back down to anyone in this league.
Right.
That's a very good point. I didn't
Right.
think about it before.
Yeah. And like, you can't, it was times last year and the year before that, De'Aaron, he doesn't back down from people. He get hit, he gets into little, verbal confrontations with people, but he's not a guy you want to, you don't want him getting unnecessary technicals. You don't want him getting thrown out of games or anything like that. And you need that enforcer. There you go. That's the word. Yeah. Like I think DeMar can be that enforcer for this team.
That makes a lot of sense. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
So, ideally, who do you think will be the starters for the Kings this season?
That's a really great question. Cause I think four spots is locked up. I think it'll be, obviously De'Aaron Fox, DeMar's, he's going to start. Sabonis, Keegan Murray, those four guys are locked in starters. Then you have, Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, the guy they closed with last year due to injuries, Keon Ellis, who was like, he was great. He was great in that role last season or whatever. Great defender. He shot the ball well. He played summer league this year and did the same things. He, real solid player. So I know that, as any competitive athlete, you want to be the starter. Nobody, you accept coming off the bench. You accept it. But nobody wants to come off the bench, even though you're playing starter minutes. You want to come out with the starting five. And I think Malik Monk wants to start, but from what I know about Malik, he's the guy that he's been one of the biggest, if not, not to take away from what De'Aaron and Sabonis has done, but he's definitely in the argument for being one of the biggest reasons this organization turned things around. It's been the way he's fit in the locker room. It's been the way he's played on the court. He's done everything they've asked of him. He's been coachable. Mike Brown is able to, get on him when he wants or needs to. And, Malik takes it and, keep it moving and stays productive. But I know, as a competitor, he wants to start. But I do think he's the guy that nothing's really going to change in his game if you bring him off the bench. So, I'm sure within, him taking that pay cut, to return to the Kings this summer, because he could have got more money, elsewhere if he would have actually went into free agency. I think that conversation has happened. I don't know if that means he's going to start, but I would like the one thing that was weird. I know I'm going on with a long answer.
Yeah.
I'm processing it as I talk, but the one thing that was weird is that when, Kevin Huerter got hurt or anybody in that shooting guard position got hurt, Malik has never gotten a start. Not even like started for a long period of time. Like he's never started, And if he would have started some games last year or even the year before, he might have actually took home the Sixth Man of the Year award. So I think that's the one thing that'll change. I think Malik will come off the bench, but I think he will start when those injuries, if those injuries happen. So then it comes down to Kevin Huerter and Keon Ellis. Kevin Huerter's been a guy. The first year he had a great year. He shot the ball well, and he struggled really ever since that 3-point contest. I don't know what happened. He struggled in the contest, and then it just carried on. And I think they're going to give him the first shot at starting because he's been the starter. And I think if you could get his confidence back and get him back into a rhythm, he makes a lot of sense with that starting lineup of bringing, putting DeRozan there, because Harrison Barnes was a guy who could shoot the three. DeRozan, he can shoot it, but he doesn't shoot it. He doesn't shoot it at all. So that means, spacing is going to be a little different. So if Kevin Huerter can get his shot back consistent, space the floor, I think it makes the most sense to give him the first shot.
Yeah.
I think Keon Ellis potentially can get the second chance over Malik, because Malik is just in that 6-man role. You know, he's so durable. He's so, flexible as far as like they know that they can start him and he'll still be Malik Monk.
Yeah.
They know they can put him on the bench and he'll still be Malik Monk. But you don't know that with Kevin Huerter or Keon Ellis. So I think, early on we may see a few different rotations, especially in preseason and things like that. But I think Kevin Huerter ultimately gets that 5th spot.
Got it. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense with his shooting. So the next question I wanted to ask you was, with all the moves that has happened this offseason, what is one move you think the Kings can make to possibly get back to the postseason? And, like, is there any free agents out there that they should keep their eye on? Or maybe a trade?
There's a – so I suck at the trade scenarios because there's so many ways. You know what I'm saying? There's so many ways things could go. There's so many things, like I've talked to different agents and heard, this possibly could happen. This possibly could happen. And it things make sense. So I'll say I'll give you a hypothetical trade. Well, no, I'll say somebody that I would target in a trade, because I know they can make it, but I don't know how. And I dislike saying trade, De'Aaron Fox and Huerter to get him or whatever. I don't even like saying it. But free agent wise, I think the Kings did a really good job in free agency this year. And one of the quiet ones that I really like, and those that know me might say I'm being biased or whatever, but it's the guy from Fresno State or Orlando Robinson. And I'm from Fresno or whatever,
Yeah.
but I've actually, we've only met once, so it's not like I have a relationship with him or whatever. But just as a player, I think I did a radio show. I did a radio show here, Sacktown 1140, the Drive guys. And they asked me, like, similar question, what I think. And I said a center. I said James Wiseman. I said James Wiseman as the backup. I think the backup center position is important for the Kings, because when you look at Alex Lynn, who's their backup center, he comes in, he do everything that he's supposed to do.
Yeah.
But is that enough to take a step? I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think that's enough. So then you don't have money to go spend on anybody to get, a real legit, center. So you gotta experiment. So I was like, James Wiseman, he'll be a low cost guy who has upside. Obviously he hasn't turned out to be the player that, being drafted number 2 and all, but maybe he can be a serviceable, backup. And that, that third center spot on the team is, especially with this team, it's a great opportunity to, you get to work your way into that, that rotation spot. And I think Orlando Robinson is another one of those guys who could do that. He could shoot the 3. He can rebound. He's a legit, I believe he's 7 foot. He's a legit big man. So, like, and then with Alex Lynn, he's not a guy that you have to play every day. Alex Lynn is the perfect teammate in this role. Like, if Orlando could come here and establish himself and make an impact, he can easily be a rotation guy. And Alex Lynn, whenever his number is called, he's ready. He's going to give you what he do. He's going to protect the paint. He's finished around the basket or whatever. You know what you're going to get out of him. Orlando Robinson is I think he was needed. I think that third center spot needed to be filled with somebody with some upside and potential. And the fact that he can shoot the ball and shoot the three, that's really good with this offense. And I think that's going to, if he can do that consistently, that's going to get him a real opportunity to play on this team.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. I did look into that move a little bit, and I was like, that's a decent move for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed like they was kind of thin with their size last season, especially on the rebounding side. So he definitely will provide that for them.
Exactly. No, exactly. And then the other one, the hypothetical trade that I would love is it's another Fresno guy, and it's not I haven't heard anything or anything like that, but it's just somebody that would fit perfectly is Brook Lopez. If they figured out a way to go out there and make a trade, put together a package to get Brook Lopez with this team and being the defensive anchor that he's grown into being, because a lot of people don't know Brook was not known as a defender at all.
That's true.
Brook was an offensive guy. When he came with the Nets, he averaged 20 plus points, every season, and he's grown into this defensive juggernaut, a rim protector, and also a 3-point shooter. And again, the Kings are really big on spacing. So anybody you add from this point, it has to be somebody that can space the floor. And if you got somebody like a Brook Lopez who could protect the paint and plus, shoot the ball from deep on offense, he would be the perfect person for this roster. But like I said, Milwaukee ain't giving him up.
Yeah. They literally just came out that they not going to give up Brook Lopez, but that is a move if they could get him.
Yeah. So
I like Brook Lopez.
Definitely.
Fun fact about Brook Lopez: I believe he's the all-time leading scorer for the Nets.
Really?
Mm-hmm. I just found that out like a few weeks ago.
Wow, that's crazy. Because he was there like 5-6 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And nobody's been there 5-6 years.
Exactly. For the Nets, like I can't think of anybody who's been there for that long period of time.
Wow, that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. I wonder if he knows.
he probably doesn't.
That's crazy. That's a good one.
Mm-hmm. So the next question I want to ask you. So Devin Carter, 13th pick of the draft, and he's recovering from shoulder injury. 6 months. So what do you think he would be like when he comes back? The type of player that the Kings can expect?
Well, I think he's going to have a lot of similarities to Davion Mitchell, who they just traded, to Toronto this summer. He's a guy that's going to defend. I think he's a better shooter than Davion. So he's again, floor spacing is really big with this team. But the one thing that's crazy, like the dude's 6'2", 6'3", and in college he was grabbing 8 rebounds a game.
Yeah, I seen that.
Yeah, that's crazy. So obviously, I don't think any of us expect him to grab 8 rebounds. But when it comes to rebounding, like Dennis Rodman is arguably one of the greatest. He is one of the greatest rebounders of all times, and he's 6'6", 6'5", whatever. Like rebounding just shows that you're giving effort on the court.
Yeah.
And Devin Carter is a dude that no matter what role you put him in, he's going to give you effort. He's going to give you energy. And he's a guy that the Kings, from what I'm told, the Kings were really big on. And they, obviously they knew about the shoulder injury. But when they seen that he dropped, they thought he would be, I'm told they thought he would be gone. He wouldn't be at 13. But because of the injury, he ends up dropping to 13. And it was like, we can't pass up on him. Yeah. So they're really big. The Kings are really big on him. And I think, shoulder injury isn't an injury that kind of really changed, much about you. When coming to basketball, it's just something that's going to have him out for, 6 months or so. But I think he's going to be a very versatile defender in this league at minimum. And it's just and that's all because of his mindset. His dad Anthony Carter played in the league or whatever. So he knows what it takes to be a professional. He knows what it takes to, to stay on a team. And, that's something that's really valuable, in the NBA, because you see all kind of players coming in and out the league, that most players don't stick around. So you got a guy in Devin Carter who's 21, 22 years old. He's a mature rookie, so he's not like a young guy. His body is developed. He's a man. He's a man. It's not a kid or whatever. So I think they're getting a guy, and even though he'll be out 6 months, I wouldn't be surprised. Like most guys with this injury, if you're a 19-year-old kid or whatever, you 16, 6 months out from playing, you could just consider he's not going to play this year.
Yeah.
But the fact that Devin Carter knows how to play the game, he knows he's not coming in to be a star. He knows he's not coming in to jack up shots. You could always find minutes for those guys. So I wouldn't be surprised if he, when he comes back and plays and, and contributes. But I think they got a really good, player that, especially at that 13th pick, when you looked at some of the guys, you had Jared McCain there, he's from Sacramento. And, that would have been a cool story and all, just, homegrown and, get them here, whatever, whatnot. But I think ultimately, I think Devin Carter was the perfect fit and the perfect pick for this team and, what they're trying to build. They have a star in De'Aaron Fox. They have another all-star in Domantas Sabonis. They are huge on Keegan Murray. Keegan Murray has been somebody that's been untouchable in trade scenarios. Teams are calling left and right, trying to get him. And it's for reasons. You got Malik back for the next 4 years, and you have a lot set. So you just needed a guy that you could fit into everything that you have working. You're not a glue guy. And Devin Carter, he's the rookie, especially in this draft class. Like he's the rookie that can do that.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm looking forward to seeing him play because, like you said, I feel like he does fit well with this team. And ultimately, even though he plays the same role, kind of like a Davion Mitchell, do you think that will kind of phase Ellis out, or do you think they can play together?
I think so. Just thinking on how Mike Brown kind of runs his rotations. I don't think I believe they can play together, but I don't think they will play much together. And that's just kind of how Mike, runs his, his rotations and things like that. But Keon will be a guy that, he's similar to Alex Len. He's similar to Alex Len. You don't have to play him. And he's gonna come in and be disruptive, on defense. He's gonna knock down shots. He's gonna play hard. His spirit, both of them, they're, from the small time I've been around Devin Carter, their spirit is always upbeat. They're, if Keon doesn't play 10 straight games, he's not gonna be on the bench, sobbing and soaking or anything like that. Like he's always going to stay ready. He's a true professional, and I think that's an advantage for a coach where you could, you got guys that I could literally just bench them to try this or try that, and I think at the same time it's an advantage, but it could hurt you if you don't, at some point you have to decide this person is going to play, this person isn't. And I think I don't think it'll be a problem, but I don't think they'll play much together. But I think they can.
Yeah, I think I could see some lineups where they both will be together. I know Mike Brown will probably try to experiment with a few things during preseason. Then ultimately he'll figure out a roster rotation that will work for him.
Yes, sir.
So all in all, where do you think they will finish rank wise in the Western Conference?
Whew, man. So, I'm really big on the DeRozan deal. We talked about it a little earlier. I think DeMar is a winner. I think also, like, even with him being a star in the NBA the last, over a decade, I know it's like 14, 15 years, whatever it is. He understands that, this is De'Aaron Fox's team, and then Domantas Sabonis is their other perennial all-star. And DeMar could get back to, all-star level, but the success of this team is going to lie, heavily on how well he could fit in, and how Harrison Barnes was a guy that, Sacramento loved. The players loved him. He's an amazing teammate. So that's something DeMar has to be, and, he will be. He'll be a great teammate. But on the court, in order to make this team better, he has to be better than Harrison Barnes, which obviously we all believe he's a better player than Harrison. But it's definitely a difference when, I'm the guy, and even being Robin, being number two. But number three is extremely, difficult. Like, you see guys like Chris Bosh and Kevin Love and other guys that struggled in that role. And then you see guys like, Klay Thompson, when they had KD and Steph. Klay was easily he's probably the best number three person in the history of the game. Like,
for real though.
He figured out how to average 20 on a team with Steph and Klay. Steph and KD, that's crazy. So DeMar has to be, he's an efficient guy. So that's like everything that he has in him makes sense to be the perfect third man. And if he can be that, they'll be back in the playoffs. It's the Western Conference is so crazy that it's hard to, say who will be that top six. But if DeMar can come and be an elite, third option, help close games when needed, in the fourth quarter, I think the Sacramento Kings will be somewhere in that mix and be in that top six.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I definitely think they have what it takes to make that top six. Feel like some teams got better, but I feel like they probably was one of the biggest offseason winners this offseason. But I think that, like you said, DeRozan fitting in, that's what makes the huge difference.
Yeah, no, and like, my co-hosts on my podcast, they've been killing me about my prediction of Memphis returning to the top six, and I think they'll be right back there. So it's like,
for sure.
The hardest part is saying who's coming out, who's not going to be in the top six. That question right there, it could be anybody. It could be the Kings. It could be, it could be Dallas, even though Dallas just went to the finals. But the West is really, that good and that intriguing that, it should be a very, very fun season, especially for Western Conference lovers.
Definitely. I want to thank you, Mark, for being on my podcast. Let everybody know where they can find you on Instagram or Twitter or Threads, wherever you have most of your work at.
Man, first off, thank you for, inviting me and having me on your show. Is an honor. Hopefully we could do this again. And, you guys, you can find me at on my Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. I believe all my social platforms are all Mark Haynes, NBA. You can follow or, find my podcast. It's 3 in the Paint podcast. I think that's the handle on all platforms. But yeah, dominantly covering the Sacramento Kings, but I do cover the entire NBA, and again, Jared, man, I appreciate you having me on. And anytime you need me, man, during the season, let's do this again. And I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity.
No problem. Thank you for being on.
Yes, sir.
All right. Have a good one.
You too, man. Enjoy your day.
You too.